Hey traders, this is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and today is Wednesday, February 17th. We'll go over the numbers first today. SPY finished just barely positive for the day. Did close in the green. S&P futures did not, but you could see up 4 basis points. And Q's finished down for the day. IWM also finished down for the day. A rare down close for the small caps, down about 0.75%. But you can see many of the indices finished off the lows. So I view that as a positive. Gold finished down 1.1% for the day. Silver, not much action there. Not much action. Two for the VIX for the end of the day. I think the VIX did close positive, but VIX went up to about 23. And then kind of came down to about 21 and a half. So what to think of this for the day? Well, why don't we talk about the technicals in the S&P for a minute? So daily chart, you kind of look, and it kind of looks like a boring day, overall. And actually, for the last week, other than that move, remember on Friday, the last like half hour of the session, right, which had a big move, and then also over the weekend, long weekend, S&P futures had a nice move. But other than that, we're not really too far from where we were basically, mid last week. It's actually been a pretty tight range in the S&P. Some choppiness, some rotation going back and forth, which makes things a little bit complicated. But if we break this down and kind of look at the hourly chart, you can kind of see what I mean, right? Where we are is basically where we were at the, right around like Wednesday, right around that price range. So you kind of take this out and this, and we're back to where we were last midweek. I would say this before I talk about this 1 hour chart. I would say the S&P, the one thing that's positive here is we're still above all the short-term moving averages, right? Sometimes I get asked questions, hey, why do you have all these lines on your charts? Well, everything on my charts help me. Sometimes they may not help. Sometimes it helps some traders to see things without any indicators on them. I like to have them. For instance, one of the things that I look at here when we're above value, right, which we know we're trending, even though we've been trending kind of slower, is that the prices remain above this 5 period moving average. The 5 period moving average that I have on the charts, and that's the line that I've got right here highlighted, just tells me what the short-term trend is, right? If price stays above there, it kind of helps me to just see that the overall trend, while we're not moving very fast, it's we're hanging on to that short-term trend, and I view that as a good thing. So 1 hour chart. Right, so we explored. It's kind of funny with the 1 hour chart because these bars are 1 hour apiece, and we did try to explore some lower levels. There was a little bit of volatility around the open in the first hour or so, but buyers kind of stepped back in a bit, and kind of reasserted themselves in certain areas of the market. I didn't see for me, looking at this chart and seeing that it's a lot of chop, it's tricky, I would say, too, because you had to sell the open yesterday, which we talked about that in yesterday's video. We came in and then, kind of chopped around. Last night we held the top of value. And just a lot of sideways action. And depending on the areas, right, we'll go over the sector performance in just a minute. Why don't we look at the Qs, too, on the 1 hour? I'm not sure what that print is down there, but probably a false print. But Qs had a little bit more downside momentum. They actually broke through value into the bottom of value, but inside. So it does look like a lot of, again, going back to this, and this is actually ducked under the 5 period moving average. But if you go back to this 1 hour, same thing here. We're basically back to the range that we were in the middle of last week, where Qs didn't really move that much. So I'll get to the conclusion here in a minute, but might as well go over IWM. IWM started the week stronger than S&P and the Qs, and actually is finishing lower here a little bit. So that's below value on the 1 hour. So again, S&P closed above value, Qs inside value, and IWM below value on the 1 hour chart. Remember, the 1 hour chart will give you a value area for the whole week. It's nice because you could really kind of find some important levels to watch there. But so IWM is actually below value, so it got hit a little bit harder, but was a bit more extended. That was the one index that was overbought coming into this week, right? So the RSI was a 74, which is running hot. Well, that's, now we've now burned off the levels there in IWM. So let's look at the sectors first, and then I'll kind of give you my conclusion on that. Blockchain stocks, they continue to do their thing with Bitcoin. This is an ETF that I'm long in the TTG Trend Portfolio. It's up 5.5% for the week. Other sectors that did okay today, the Jets ETF. Do I not have the Jets? I guess I don't have the Jets ETF in here. But that did finish up 1.5%. That was actually, besides the blockchain ETF, that was your best performer. Energy stocks also remain strong. RTH, which is your bigger retail names, so like names like Walmart, Target, Home Depot, they had decent days today. So a little bit more conservative things. I have this ETF on my one of my watch lists too, SPLV, right? That is the low volatility ETF. That actually outperformed today too. That's what this chart looks like, right? SPLV, low volatility ETF. Right, and I might as well show you a chart of Home Depot. Home Depot reports next week, but Home Depot's been a lot of chop the last few months. Basically, this thing stopped trending back in September. Right, kind of try to take out the highs in October, but a lot of sideways price action. So who knows? Maybe this thing starts to trend again after going sideways. I'll be watching for that. Lowe's is another one too that I started to kind of watch a little bit, right? Some of these things, like I have to see more than a 1 day move, right? So Lowe's, again, that reports next week too. A little bit better of a chart, but man, very, 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 very choppy sideways. Target is in value, still had a nice day, up 1.6%. Amazon tried to get going today. So this doesn't look bad, up 1.2%. What I'm watching, just like I talked about the indices in the 1 hour chart, I'm looking for a move out of value. Who knows? Maybe that can happen tomorrow. Listen, I would love for Amazon to move. I've talked about how Amazon has been going sideways. It's been a frustrating name. But hey, I'm open to, you have to stay objective. In my opinion, right? And everything, of course, that we're going through in this video is for information purposes only, education only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. But hey, if this Amazon wants to start, to get going a little bit, I'm watching for a break above 3,322. It's sure as hell has been a frustrating name, for the last few months. But you have to kind of keep tabs on these things, because again, I try to stay as objective as possible. Meaning if a name hasn't done anything, just like some of the ones that I've mentioned so far, if it begins to do something, I want to be a part of it, right? So we'll continue to watch for names that are trending. Again, 1 day is not a trend, so nice to see this thing get back above value, up 1.2%. But would love to see this Amazon start to get going again. All right, let me just move this out of here. All right, and so I started going over the sectors. Let's finish that analysis. But consumer discretionary did finish up 60 basis points. Also, Tesla was kind of interesting today, right? It did break value, so I'm watching this 805 level. I almost decided to throw something on here in Tesla at the end of the day, but I would like to see it get back inside value. I have to follow my rules, right? When something's below value, I kind of avoid it for a long. And I like to see things at least get back inside value, and then there's a trade that I can kind of look for a travel through the value area, but really that's a harder trade in my opinion than a breakout. But it did find support at the 50-day moving average, which I think is a good sign for Tesla to finish green. I think it was down over 2% for the day. So again, a lot of names that I'm going over through in today's video are mostly like I'm watching, right? There were not a bunch of names that jumped off the page to me. Sometimes that's how it works in trading, right? Sometimes that you see a bunch of signals and it gets you kind of in the mood to put some risk on and put some money to work. But I'll tell you, I didn't really see a ton of things. I'll go over one name that I did put. I'll go over a couple names. and I'll go over all my trades that where I did put on a little bit money to work. But overall, like for the dip today, that we or mini dip, right? I did not see like a ton of things that just were like, hey, this looks great. Buy the dip name. I'm kind of letting things play out a little bit. Right, and names that didn't perform. So again, energy still up there, which I'm not really too exposed to energy. Clean energy, and that's, by the way, that's what I refer to as dirty energy. Financials had a little bit of follow through today. They did finish up 1%, or sorry, 0.5% for the day, and they rallied from the lows. So they gave you an opportunity to put a little bit of work together. Home builders, even though TLT, right? I forgot to go over TLT, but TLT was actually up today, right? Big move down yesterday, but today TLT was actually higher. And the semis were weak today, so we could put that in red too. They finished down almost 2% for the day. Pot stocks had a big move down today, although Tillery is moving up here after hours on. Looks like they beat earnings. But pot stocks fell 5.2%. So a lot of I refer to it as a lot of fluff names got hit a little bit today. Names that have just been running on momentum, and the momentum kind of just ran out in some areas of the market. Also, a little bit in the theme of the day, I put a little bit of a momentum sell-off. I honestly, I think this is pretty good, right? To see some of the weekends get shaken out of the market, right? We know that sentiment has been super high, right? So, I think it's good to kind of shake the trees a little bit and get some of the weekends out of the market. Some of the traders who have been kind of maxed out, maybe not trading, I think, appropriately. Like I see a lot of traders, obviously, on Twitter. Anytime the market is down, it's like the world is ending. So one of the things that I talked about in the weekend video is that so this is from Sunday, right? This is the little blurb that I go through on Sunday in the we set up two videos every weekend. The first one is the macro video. The second one is the watch list video. But I was saying, I went through sectors and I said a lot of areas are really, are getting extended, right? I said this on Sunday. So I said I would like to see a pullback, a little bit of hit the reset button, right? So I'm not sure if we're, if there was any major damage done other than, maybe spilling some of that hot sediment out. So I'm kind of bought the dip in some things that I wanted to get involved in today, which I'll go over in just a second. But I still think having some dry powder here, right? Because I want to play offense, right? Today I was playing a little bit more offense than defense when the market pulled back. Right, I was in a little bit better position. I still had names on going into today, but a lot of those names I had taken multiple targets in, that type of thing. So let me go through a couple things that I did today. I tried buying the dip maybe a little bit too early in Micron, and I sold out of that position. I also bought a little bit of SCCO, and some of these things kind of faltered, and I got out of both of those trades. Boeing, I tried to actually, this was a name that I talked about in yesterday's video, just wasn't convincing enough for me. It finished down on the day, so I underperformer. So even though it's still, just an inside day, and I'll be watching it tomorrow, but I was in short-term calls. I was in March calls. I decided just to abandon that trade for now, and we'll look at it again tomorrow. I bought a little bit of NCLH too. Again, this this kind of was off to a really nice start around 10 o'clock in the morning, and I did take a target in it, which is good, but did not close strong. So I took a target at 26, and the thing finished right around where I entered it. So I left that one on, but again, not like overall convincing, right? Same Boeing, and I hit a target in Boeing, and then took it off. And then I really didn't do much trading in the afternoon. I looked for a couple things. Airbnb was a nice winner for me about a week ago. Now this thing is, sold off down about 4% for the day. and I bought some here into support. Uber also made a nice little play. This is a name that I added on Friday. It looked like they were out there buying the dip in this one. There was a big roll of calls too, and so still holding the short-term moving average. So I'm in this one, and I'm in some calls out. Where's my calls? August. So this one I've got a little bit longer. Yeah, I'm in. Nope, I'm in the September calls. September 70s. So they're marking right around where I originally bought them last Friday. So yeah, so I added to a couple things. I took off a couple things that I didn't like the weakness in, and VIPS. This is a name that I've been stalking for a while, right? So this is what. Whoops, that's the wrong. That's the wrong symbol. Notice the sideline. The sideways consolidation. This name reports next week, right? But it looks like it's trying to come out of this flag or consolidation the right way. So I've been watching this for a week because we saw them load up in calls in here, and we saw a little bit more calls going out to January. I think January 22. So this was a name that I took, and it's kind of my favorite setup for the day. It did make it through value on the 1 hour chart. So last week was all chop. Same thing with the beginning of this week. So I got a trade signal, right, and out to new highs for that one. And really, that's it. Just wasn't a lot of things that, like I said, were too convincing to me. So, that's sometimes how it is. And if this market is going to continue to go sideways a little bit, then I think, a couple things that I can say that will help. Making it, I listened to Kathy Wood on CNBC earlier, and I really, I'm a big fan of hers, even though I think people use that end of day file the wrong way. People get all excited when Kathy Wood starts to position in the name, but I think people forget that she has a 5-year time horizon. So a couple things that I just remembered from what she said on CNBC that I thought was pretty interesting. She talked about how in one of her funds, right, which is the ARC Genomics, ARC-G, right? So they've been buying, if you've been paying attention to what they've been buying, it's been more healthcare names like Roche, names like Takeda, right? So I may have missed something that she said, but I'm not sure if she just wanted to get a little bit more defensive and buy some of the things that she thought were a little bit more value. And she's rotated out of some of the high flyers, right? So, she used to, in that ETF, and I think she still does own a lot, but I think she trimmed a lot of, the really hot genomic plays. So even though it's called the genomic ETF, she mentioned that. She also mentions that a lot of times she's doing something different than what retail and what some institutions are doing. Meaning, when some names go up, she takes profits. When some names go down, she buys. And again, I think part of that is the 5-year time horizon, right? You could do a lot of those things, right? This was a name that I talked about over the weekend, for example. Unity Software, right? Finished down 3% for the day, right? She was buying this thing after earnings last week, and it's still going lower, right? I think this thing may take out this 111 VPOC. So I might be more interested if it gets down to 111. Here, because I don't have a 5-year time horizon, I would be looking to do probably a swing trade, a couple weeks, which is much different than 5 years. So it's interesting to me that she's buying the name, or she started buying it last week. But does it fit my trading plan? No, it doesn't. From a technical basis, the stock looks very weak, and I think it could go down here. The other thing is, again, having all the short-term moving averages in the value areas, it's below value, so it's trending down. It's also below the 50-day moving average, below the 20, below the 5. So why would I want to get involved in a name that is trending lower like this? Some people would argue, the buy the dippers, that, it's getting cheaper. Okay, it's getting cheaper, but you don't have any confirmation that it's done going down other than your gut instinct, right? And, Kathy Wood and company will probably be right. But again, they may be right in a year, 2 years, 3 years. I don't have that time horizon. So I'm going to be looking at 111, right, for a dip buy. And we'll see if it gets there. If it doesn't, be plenty of other names to look at. Also, speaking of biotech, which I mentioned, I started to leg into a position yesterday. I did add to that position, so it did hold, which I think is good. Biotech is a funny sector. One of the things that I always notice with this XBI ETF, remember, this is equally weighted. It's much different than IBB, which is market cap weighted, right? In XBI, the small caps get the same weight as the large caps. This sometimes leads moves. Notice that this thing started to peel back towards the end of last week, right? And we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red candles in a row. We're into support now, which is why I added to it today, and we'll see. For me, it's got to hold 156, right? So that's what I'm watching, and we'll see if this will come up with a reversal. But this is a swing trade for me, right? And I like things coming into support, dipping and into support. So we'll see if it holds. I would like to see a little bit more continuation from there. And I think overall a good sign that this went from red to green for the day. Because again, I think that sometimes biotech leads you down. And I think sometimes it's a good sign when this comes back too after a little bit of a sell-off. So that's pretty much it, guys. For the day, I don't have any major market issues other than a couple other adjustments. Other than I thought what was interesting, what Kathy Wood was saying, is that I see too many traders on Twitter that just do the same thing day in and day out, regardless of what the market is doing. Right? I've been talking about that this week. I was chatting with somebody online who's like, says that they're in weekly options. If the market remember, options are very good. There's different tools that you have, right, to use, right? Options are very good for fast, aggressive moves. They're very good for when the market is trending. If the market slows down and starts chopping more, you could really give back a lot of money in options. Because, again, with options, you have to get two things right. You have to get the time right, and you have to get the direction right, right? So some people think that, oh, well, I'll get the direction right. But if you don't get the time right and you're in short-term calls, you have a problem on your hands. So as the market has slowed down here a little bit, even though it had a little bit of volatility to it, I still, going back to what I was saying in the beginning of the video, we really haven't gone anywhere in a week, right? So if we continue to see more chop, you're going to get beat up in options in short term, unless you're very quick scalping them and day trading them. But if not, if you're doing anything else with short-term options, that's where you begin to give back money, even though the market isn't selling off. Just something that I've learned over time and I've experienced when I first traded options. I wasn't making those adjustments. I was just thinking, hey, I'll just continue to trade options regardless of what the market is doing. So that's what I see for now. What I try to do on weeks like this is go through and look at how many positions that I have on in options versus stock. And days like this or weeks like this, first thing that I get rid of is option positions, because we're no longer, listen, we still have the short-term trend, but we're not moving as fast as we have been, right? Especially back in here, right? So I get rid of options. That's one of the first things that I do. Anything short-term, because those have a tendency to wreak havoc on your P&L. All right, guys. So that's it. Those are a couple adjustments, and we'll talk more about that in on the pre-market session tomorrow at Tribeca Trade Group. Have a great night, everybody, and I'll see you tomorrow.